They walked off a trail. They vanished from camp. They were found weeks later, miles away, disoriented, with no memory, or worse. They were never found at all. For over a decade, my work with Missing 411 has focused on a relentless series of unsettling cases, disappearances in North American wildlands that defy every law of logic and probability. They baffle every conventional explanation. These are not mere accidents. They follow a frighteningly consistent, dark pattern that seems to actively evade documentation by law enforcement and the National Park Service. Tonight, we dive deep into the evidence. We will examine the clusters of these vanishings. We explore the circumstances that tie the victims together, from the impossible survival to the profound and deeply disturbing disorientation upon their return. This is not just a tale of simple bad luck or poor preparation. This is a look into the heart of the phenomenon we call Missing 411, a phenomenon that suggests something intelligent is at play. One of the most common and confounding elements of a classic Missing 411 case is the sudden, immediate onset of severe disorientation. Victims, even those who are veteran, experienced hikers, simply lose all sense of direction within seconds, as if a switch was flipped. Take the infamous Bennington Triangle in Vermont, an area steeped in a chilling history of vanishings and ancient legends. Here, we find the case of Robert Singley, a 7-year-old music teacher who knew the trails well. He describes the cold, the rain, and the fog descending instantly, out of nowhere. He later expressed feeling as if he was sucked through some sort of space-time continuum without warning. 1 minute, he was solidly on a familiar path. The next, he was completely lost, separated from his own reality by an invisible, impenetrable wall. He was found alive, one of the extremely lucky few, in an area where others simply vanish forever, leaving no trace. This disorientation strikes with surgical precision. Look at Christopher Staff, the 70-year-old experienced hiker in New Hampshire's rugged White Mountains. He was just 5 miles from the end of his multi-day loop. Yet, he suddenly lost the trail, lost his essential gear, and spent days drinking river water, suffering from vivid, continuous hallucinations. He saw searchers, called out to them in desperation, but when he blinked, they were gone, as if he had slipped into a parallel veil. The question is chilling. Was the trauma of the wilderness causing the sickness, or was the sickness a symptom of what pulled him off the safe, clearly marked path? The distinction is crucial. The second, equally disturbing pattern in these cases is the victim's consistent inability to communicate with searchers, often compounded by extreme, terrifying hallucinations. They are present, but unseen. Consider Michael St. Laurent, who went missing for 9 days in the remote North Vancouver backwoods. When he was finally rescued, his account was horrific and almost unbelievable. For days, he was dehydrated, hypothermic, and hallucinating non-stop. Seeing himself at work, driving home, even sitting down for a meal in his favorite restaurant. His perception of time was shattered. 3 days felt like 3 weeks. But here is the critical, chilling detail. Michael claims he saw other hikers pass right by him, yet he was completely unable to get their attention, no matter how hard he tried. He describes them acting as if he were entirely invisible. The search and rescue teams vehemently deny ever being anywhere near the area he stated he saw them. One must ask, who is telling the truth? And why would an experienced man resort to scribbling his personal information on his arm, expecting to die alone? This phenomenon of being present but unseen reaches its peak in the extreme survival stories. Michael Nainsky, snowshoeing on Mount Rainier, hit a sudden, violent whiteout. Another recurring environmental trigger in Missing 411. He fell. He blacked out. and he was later found lifeless. He was clinically deceased for a full 45 minutes before doctors, against all conventional science, jump-started his heart with no lasting long-term effects. The extreme cold is one thing, but the sheer improbability of his successful resuscitation is another. The location itself, like so many of these vanishing points, seems to harbor a strange, almost miraculous quality when the victims are finally recovered. Perhaps the most inexplicable pattern in the entire Missing 411 archive involves cases of impossible distance and significant missing time, where victims cover hundreds or even thousands of miles without recollection. This is the case of Danny Philippides, a 9-year-old firefighter who simply stepped away from his group at Whiteface Mountain, New York, to retrieve his cell phone from his nearby car. He was supposed to be right back. 6 days later, he was discovered nearly 3,000 miles away in Sacramento, California. He was still wearing his ski clothes. He had inexplicably acquired a brand new cell phone. He had even received a fresh haircut. He had absolutely no memory of the incredible journey, only believing he took a wrong turn on a simple ski slope. His car and forgotten phone remained untouched back in New York. How does a man without a wallet, without ID, travel across an entire continent, purchase items, and receive services, all while apparently suffering severe amnesia and a debilitating head injury? It is a logistical and psychological impossibility by any conventional metric. Then we have Amanda Eller in Hawaii's Makauo Forest Reserve. She was gone for 17 excruciating days. She claimed she went off path to sit and rest, and became instantly disoriented, pulled by a very strange, insistent gut instinct in the wrong direction. She survived on whatever she could find, including moths and stream water, even spending one terrifying night in a wild boar's abandoned den. She was fighting for her life against the jungle. But Amanda heard something else during her ordeal, a loud, strong, and insistent voice telling her she had to choose between living and dying. Furthermore, every time she tried to turn back the way she knew was correct, something would physically stop her. A branch would fall. She would violently trip. It was as if something was actively preventing her return, leading her deeper into the reserve's ancient heart. These are the details that separate an accident from an orchestrated event. The bizarre survival accounts often bring the most compelling, yet most easily dismissed, testimonies. When examined closely, the details simply fail to align with common sense. Look at Lisa Thias, the 5-year-old who was missing for an entire month in the Alabama woods. She was legally blind without her corrective lenses. She was eventually pronounced deceased by the authorities. Then, she stumbled out onto a main road, naked and severely malnourished. She claims she survived solely on wild mushrooms and berries. However, investigators confirmed the specific berries she claims to have eaten do not grow in that specific region. Furthermore, the stream water she drank should have made her gravely ill, if not killed her. If she was legally blind, how did she successfully navigate 30 days of dense wilderness? Was she truly lost in the woods, we know, or was she lost somewhere else, and simply provided a false narrative upon her return? Finally, the seemingly romantic hike of Carol Karski and Ian Irwin, an older, experienced couple lost for 8 days in the rugged California coastline wilderness. They were found suffering only mild hypothermia. They survived by drinking muddy puddle water and foraging for edible ferns. Their background as an herbalist and a mountaineer likely saved them from total catastrophe. Yet, when describing crossing a patch of dense, thorny poison oak, the story turns utterly strange. Carol willingly took off her essential shoes. Ian, her seven-year-old husband, then had to lay his body flat into the painful, toxic brush so she could walk across him. Why remove the shoes? Why the strange physical painful sacrifice to cross such a small obstacle. The couple has since chosen to remain completely silent about the bulk of their ordeal. A common, distressing reaction among those who truly remember. We have seen the evidence, the sudden, illogical disorientation, the inability of searchers to connect with the victim, the impossible distances traveled in missing time, and the immediate onset of bizarre, random, inclement weather. From Robert Singley being swallowed by unnatural fog, to Danny Philippides waking up across the country, to Michael St. Laurent being rendered invisible to help. The consistency of these horrifying anomalies is the very core of the missing 411 mystery. These are the cases that simply do not fit any conventional framework of missing persons. They happen in clusters, often near water sources, unusual rock formations, or deep ravines, and they are defined by the sheer terror of being isolated. What is causing these seemingly healthy, prepared individuals to suddenly and completely abandon all logic and wander into dangerous terrain? What truly happens in those periods of crucial missing time? The mountains are vast, the forests are deep, but the patterns, my friends, are undeniable, and they point to something far more organized, far more ancient than a simple hiking accident. The goal of Missing 411 is not to provide easy answers, but to ask the necessary, difficult questions. We honor the missing by refusing to forget the profound strangeness of their last known moments, or their miraculous, yet inexplicable, return